Taffy? What are you doing? Taffy, the new season comes out tomorrow. Don't do it. I know what you're gonna do. Don't do it, please. Taffy, put the phone down now. Don't do it. Oh boy. Okay. There's still some left. It doesn't have to be this way. You can back out now. Or not. That's fine too. You proud of yourself? Are you happy with what you did? There's 1 day left. You couldn't wait 1 day? You're not gonna make it to leaderboards. Oh boy, it's all gone. I guess I'm using this now. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I just dumped all my Stardust into Xerneas on the last day of the season. I don't know why. And we're doing this. I just felt like it. The first few games you're gonna see aren't with the Pokemon I just built. I actually made Xerneas for the set after. The first few games I'm just running a standard ABB line. It's gonna be Fire Double Dragon with Ho-Oh on the lead and Zekrom and Dialga in the back. Ho-Oh does a good job of covering ground types, fighting types, and fairy types, which my backline is really weak to, and the back two can cover Ho-Oh's weaknesses. Alright, first game we have an amazing lead because the algorithm feels bad for me dumping all my Stardust. We have Solgaleo on the lead into my Ho-Oh. My opponent makes an immediate swap into Giratina Altered, and I bring out Dialga because it's going to have a better matchup than Zekrom because it's going to be able to take these Dragon Claws a lot better. Remember, Dialga is part Steel type, therefore Dragon type moves are neutral, not super effective. I actually end up losing this switch because I should have thrown my Iron Head before my opponent reached his third Dragon Claw, but I didn't, and my opponent ends up shielding the one Iron Head that I can reach. I thought I could reach two, to be fair. Now I bring in Ho-Oh and I'm expecting an Ancient Power because for some reason all of these Giratinas are running Ancient Power. That's fine. I guess they don't need Steel type coverage. My opponent also manages to reach a Dragon Claw before I can farm down, but I don't shield fully expecting to survive. I'm actually putting all my hope into Zekrom at this point, and I'm up 2 shields, so I'm hoping 2 shielded Zekrom could have a lot of play. Actually, I'm going to shield the Ho-Oh here because I reached a move and I can take his final shield. So let's see if we take that shield. We take that shield, so now I have 1 shield for Zekrom versus the Solgaleo, and Solgaleo actually doesn't have that much it can throw against me. It can only go straight Psychic Fang. The fast move, which is Fire Spin, is resisted, and Iron Head is going to be resisted as well. Zekrom, however, has Fusion Bolt, which is going to be doing neutral damage to Solgaleo, and it's actually going to be doing a decent amount of damage. Now he's in farm down range, which is perfect for me. I'm going to shield this next Psychic Fangs because it's going to take me out if I don't. And I need to save all my energy for Lugia, which is actually still in the yellow. My opponent tries to snipe me, but I'm fast on that Fusion Bolt. I tap it before his Dragon Tail damage registers, which might have done enough to take me out because I'm super debuffed right now. We reach a second Fusion Bolt on the Solgaleo, we take them out, and we take that first win. Well played to my opponent. On to the next game. We have Ho-Oh into Dialga lead. This is an okay matchup for Ho-Oh. It's actually a little bit tricky because if Dialga has Thunder, that can one-shot us. Also, Draco Meteor can one-shot us, so I have to be careful for those. I might have to invest a shield into this matchup to win it. My opponent also has to invest a shield, so this isn't a happy situation for either of us. My opponent throws Draco Meteor and then immediately swaps into Zacian. Okay, now I make a few interesting choices here. I swap into Zekrom attempting to catch a Wild Charge, but he has Play Rough and he throws that against me and that's going to destroy me. However, in my head, what he had in the back I thought I could beat with Dialga. So there's 2 things he could have in the back that I was thinking. He might have either Giratina Origin, or he might have Xerneas because I've seen a lot of people running Dialga Double Fairy. Turns out to be Giratina Origin, so all I have to do now is throw these 2 Brave Birds on Ho-Oh. My opponent makes an impressive catch onto Dialga on the second Brave Bird, but it's not going to matter because now he's in farm down range for my Dialga, and his Giratina Origin is pretty low, and I have a shield left, so his energy isn't going to be that useful to him. 1 Shadow Ball isn't enough to take out my Dialga from that range, so my opponent surrenders. GG's to my opponent. Moving on to the next match, we have another Dialga lead. Remember this, we're going to be seeing a lot of them. So when Ho-Oh reaches Sacred Fire, it's not enough for a Dialga to reach a Draco Meteor, so I didn't shield thinking maybe he was baiting with Iron Head, but I should have been smarter than this. He went for Thunder, it turns out he's not running Draco Meteor. I go for the Iron Head before he can reach his own Iron Head and take him out with my Dialga. My opponent brings out Xerneas and it destroys both Dialga and Zekrom. Yeah. Moving on to the next match. Hey guys, guess what we see on the lead? Dialga! See, what did I tell you? Okay, we have Ho-Oh into Dialga, and this time my opponent decides to swap out into Mewtwo. I attempt to catch a Side Strike on Dialga, but my opponent is smart enough and does not throw it. My opponent actually builds up to a Focus Blast. I chicken out and I shield. I should know better, the first one's almost always a bait. My opponent builds up to Focus Blast again, and I decide to use my second shield. It's an Ice Beam, which is actually okay. I reach my Iron Head and I take one of his shields, so at least we got that. Now my opponent is in farm down range, and one Ice Beam is not going to be enough to take us out. My opponent brings back in his Dialga, and I reach a Draco Meteor. This can take his last shield, and because I'm ahead on energy on Ho-Oh, I can actually reach the Sacred Fire before he can get to a Draco Meteor, and this is going to be taking out his Dialga, and he has a Kyogre in the back, which is perfect for my Zekrom. This is exactly what Zekrom wants to see. Now I can bring in Zekrom, and I just have to watch out for the Blizzard. If he builds up to it, I can attempt to catch on Dialga, but my opponent surrenders here, which means he probably didn't have it. GG's to my opponent. Moving on to the next match. We get another Dialga lead, and because apparently I did not learn my lesson from the last match, I'm going to build up to the Sacred Fire, and my opponent is going to throw before me. What does this mean they have? They have a Thunder. Why I don't shield, I don't know. I'm saving those shield for something. And I actually could have won this game if I had shielded my Ho-Oh, because my opponent's entire backline is weak to Dialga, so if I had a really healthy Dialga for his backline, I could have won this game. I don't have to shield my Dialga because I know my opponent is running Thunder, not Draco. Now my opponent swaps out of his Dialga into Giratina Origin. Again, really weak backline to Dialga. I throw Draco and swap out, but I should have thrown an Iron Head. Now my Zekrom is up against their Giratina. They only build up to an Ominous Wind, so I don't shield the first one. I am going to shield the second one, however, to keep my Zekrom healthy. Now my opponent makes a very impressive play when he brings in Palkia. I reach the first Fusion Bolt, it takes his last shield, and my opponent manages to catch the Outrage on his really low Dialga, and this gives my opponent the win. Really well played. I threw that game. I completely threw that game. That was an easy win for me. We get 3 wins in that set, which is really good. We are currently in the 3,200s. We reached 3,253, which is pretty nice. And the next set, we're going to use Xerneas. For Xerneas, I decided to run a standard double fairy backline with a Dialga lead. I didn't include the first game because I was running Yveltal lead in the first game and I didn't like it. So for the rest of the games, we're going to be running Dialga, Zacian, and Xerneas. And the first lead we get is Ho-Oh. My, how the tables have turned. Now what I thought I could do is I could pretend I'm building up to the Thunder and then maybe my opponent would shield. But I tried to bait with Iron Head, it didn't work. My opponent then makes a swap into Lugia, and I swap in Xerneas, but I'm not sure if this was the right swap. Maybe I should have swapped in Zacian because Zacian has Wild Charge, which is super effective against Lugia's Flying type. Now I have to take an Aeroblast from Lugia because I am a shield down and I need to save a shield for whatever Ho-Oh is going to throw, because my entire team is kind of weak to Ho-Oh. I think with this team you want to run Thunder on Dialga, not Draco. I let Lugia take Xerneas out with Sky Attack because I recognize that he is in farm down range and energy on Zacian could be really good for me in this match. For some reason I don't shield the Brave Bird, I build up a bunch of energy and then I swap out into Dialga when his Ho-Oh was in farm down range. Now my opponent brings in his own Dialga. I'm going to go straight for the Draco Meteor because I need to get his shields out of the way, and my win con there was for my opponent not to shield that actually. But my opponent was in kind of a tricky situation where he couldn't really shield that because my Zacian was ahead on energy and he kind of needed to save 2 shields for the Zacian, which is why the better play for me was not to bait with Iron Head and go straight for that Draco Meteor. Excuse me while I catch this Kecleon. Of course I get distracted in the middle of my set. I didn't even know it was there, it kind of surprised me. And I still need it for my shiny Jirachi. Anyways, moving on to the next battle, we have Dialga into Rayquaza. This is the most hard counter battle I see. My opponent swaps Metagross into Dialga and I have nowhere to go, so I'm just gonna stay in and pray. I should be baiting here because I don't have an answer to Metagross, so this was a questionable play. Now you see what the team is weak to. It's weak to Metagross. Here I just swap in Zacian and I hope that he's gonna let the close combat go. I reach it, but unfortunately he reaches Meteor Mash and we CMP tie. Metagross wins CMP tie over Zacian, and my opponent has Solgaleo in the back, and we surrender because there was no way I was gonna win that. Okay, this next match I play really stupidly. Like, I actually don't know what I was thinking or what my thought process was here. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing in this match. I go straight for the Draco Meteor on Ho-Oh, you get a Ho-Oh lead, and for some reason I decide to let the Sacred Fire go because I was able to successfully take a shield from the Ho-Oh. So I'm thinking I'm just gonna bring in Zacian now and build up to the Wild Charge. I'll build up a little bit extra and throw the Wild Charge, and now hopefully the Ho-Oh won't shield because he's already used up a shield. I don't know why I didn't shield the Sacred Fire on my Zacian either. That was an interesting choice. My opponent brings out Lugia and I swap out of my debuffed Zacian with a little bit of energy, but I bring in Xerneas now and I'm just gonna throw these Moonblasts at this Lugia. I still have 2 shields, which is really good. I almost throw the Moonblast on the Lugia, but my opponent tries to catch on Dialga. However, I make another questionable choice and I still go for the Moonblast. I think at this point, I just wanted to see how much the Moonblast would do to Dialga, and I had a ton of energy, so I was kind of okay with that play. I knew I could make 2 more close combats anyways, but that's not the right play. You're supposed to go for the 2 close combats. I bring Zacian back in and I'm easily able to build up to 2 Wild Charges because Lugia's fast move is resisted, and he survives the second one with 1 HP. Xerneas is able to take him out with 1 Geomancy, and we take that win somehow. I don't know how. I don't know what my thought process was in that game. I don't understand how we won that. I don't understand that game at all. And I'm pretty sure whoever's watching won't understand this game at all. I'm sorry for that game. But let's just forget that ever happened and move on to the next game, where we are met with a Mewtwo lead, which is pretty decent for Dialga. My opponent immediately swaps into Zacian. What I'm going to do is I actually want to build up to the Iron Head and throw it. If he doesn't shield, this would be great for my backline because my backline actually doesn't really have a solid answer to Zacian. They're both messy, neutral matchups. I bring in Xerneas because at least with Xerneas I'm not debuffing myself with the Wild Charge, so I'm just going to throw these Moonblasts. My opponent reaches 2 Wild Charges, but I'm able to farm down, and I leave that matchup with a ton of energy on my Xerneas. My opponent brings back in Mewtwo, and I'm going to throw these Moonblasts at Mewtwo. I'll be able to easily reach another one, and this will go unshielded and do a ton of damage to Mewtwo. He doesn't shield it. Now we can bring back in Dialga, and I'm thinking the play for me would be to farm down completely. However, my opponent immediately swaps into Groudon, and Groudon is another Pokemon that this whole team actually struggles against. But since we're up 1 shield, I'm actually able to double shield my Dialga and go for these Iron Heads. Now, I'm recognizing that my opponent has a win condition if he baits successfully and I shield. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm not gonna shield. If it's a bait, it's a bait. If it's a Precipice Blades, it's okay. He'll take me out, but I'll still have that shield for Zacian in the back. And Zacian is still full health in the back, so it can either take a move from Groudon or Mewtwo. And shields are down for my opponent, so I just needed to reach 2 moves on Zacian. I could easily make those, and my opponent surrenders there. And that's another set with 3 wins. I'm glad I got this Master League video out right before the season ended, even though it cost me all my Stardust. But that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys found it informative and maybe learned something. If you guys like my videos, consider subscribing and maybe leaving a like. And I will see you guys in the next season. Bye!